Hello, I'm Joseph. Today I want to talk about kind of my struggles with getting this project more complete. I ran into an issue where I was getting a segment fault, and I want to walk you through that and kind of what it all boiled down to. But basically, there's some PHP code here that is, interlacing the Raylib stuff, and at this point, update camera, it would crash. So just to show you a quick, we'll go ahead and compile this, and then run that example. And then it's going to go ahead and crash, and it tells me here that it's, update intern from the update function, and it's line 79. So if I go to OK, go to line 79, you'll see that right here it is erroring out. And basically, the internal position PHP object isn't there anymore. It's completely gone. It's a null pointer for whatever reason. When you look at the PHP code, basically initializes the camera, sets the camera mode, which doesn't update the actual camera object itself, and then it just goes into its first loop here. And when it goes through one loop, it's fine, but when it goes to the second loop, it's no longer fine. That data seems to be gone or missing. And so just to kind of prove the point, I'm going to go ahead and debug and step through this code here so you kind of see what I'm talking about. So the just debugger. Okay, so we're at set camera mode. So that's this piece of code here. So we're right here, and we look at the PHP internal, and you can see that it's 424, which is matching up what is up here for the position that we set for that 424, which is set in the camera position. So it looks good, right? So now we're going to move on from set camera mode, which was right here, to update camera. So I'm going to go ahead and resume. So now we're at update camera. We're right here. We're just before the update internals, and you can see that already the tracked property that we have, all of the variables are completely messed up, gargled. It does not make any sense. I tried going through and changing the structures of how I'm tracking this to be non-pointers, and it would be like assigned to like random other variables that had set up in the PHP code. So rather than it being the 424 that's right there, what would happen is that right here it'd be picking this up, or pick up this one, or pick up this one. It would just like just random for some reason, and I couldn't figure out why. So I mulled over through all of the internal C code and how I set up objects and stuff like that. So for example, when you set up like a PHP object in C, this is kind of what you need to start to do. You set up the Zen allocate, get the size of it, set up the property handlers, and then also you include the standard initializations for the properties, objects, and handlers and stuff like that. I went through all the C code, through all the extensions, and they kind of do the same thing here. Just make sure that was right. I also went through all the methods to make sure that the way I'm grabbing the PHP object and the way I'm getting the reference to it is correct. And I just couldn't figure it out. I isolated it to just a few hundred lines of code. I sent an email out to the PHP internals, and obviously this is kind of like a higher up issue as to why this would be happening. But the core issue was I was making a video on this to kind of say like I'm stuck at this point. But as I was doing that, I was going over this here, and this was introduced in PHP 7 and effectively defines on how the function it operates. So this is saying that there is a total of one reference, and there's a total of one required parameters. This is unused. And then in each of the parameters, you tell if it's a 1 or 0. If it's a 1, it's a reference. So what's happening is that in the C code, I'm defining the function like this. So it's function update camera. Instead of just camera itself, I am putting a reference in front of that. So this is how you would write in PHP. This is the exact same way. And then I would do something like camera position x plus plus. There's no reason to have this here because you already have a reference to the camera. This, it's bound by reference when you pass in an object versus like an integer or an array or something like that. There's no reason to have this unless you're doing something more along the lines of saying initializing the value. So you can say like camera equals new camera 3D, and then down here you just say like update camera who cam 23, whatever. Like this variable doesn't exist, And so it's going to take that variable and create it. So then when you want to access foo camera, then you can do like foo camera 23 position x plus plus or whatever. Then you could do that there. But that's not what I wanted to do. I just wanted to take in a property and change it. So I don't know why I thought that was okay. But as I was doing it, I was like, I wonder what happened if I just change this to 0. So I went ahead and changed it to 0, recompiled it, and then it ran, which was really frustrating because I spent a lot of time changing the structures, changing everything else I was supposed to do. So this is how the code should look and should operate, just like the C code does. So this is all of it, all this 3D stuff running in Raylib and in PHP code. So pretty cool. Now I do have definitely one other issue and one more that I'm not quite sure on. So in my C code, I'm referencing, so like in PHP, there's just the left and right values. There's the ability to track the variable, and then there's the ability to track what's inside of that variable. For primitives, like integers, strings, floats, booleans, even arrays or hashes, it doesn't really care. But for objects, it seems to really make a difference. So for example, if I was to change this to position 4, actually, let me leave this here. I'm going to show you what the camera should be looking at when it starts up. So you can see that you can see the walls, basically. You can see the walls in there, which is expected. But if I change this to position, you're going to notice that I'm no longer looking at the walls. I'm looking at something completely different, like really turn to some other place. It's a different area of where I'm starting at. It's supposed to be like in the middle. The reason is because there is another position variable that's defined here, which is right here, which is used to draw some box or something like that. So it's used to draw the position of a cube. It is not ideal to have that overlap there. I can say, oh, well, just give it a new variable name, blah, blah, blah. It's pretty simple, just avoid not to do that. But then what happens when I say I do something like position 4 equals 3? So now it's no longer a vector. And then I want to echo out the camera position come on, and the x value, and I can say camera x value and a new line. Go ahead and run this. When I go ahead and close this and we look at the value here, you can see that it is no longer the expected 4 value. It's some random stuff, and that's simply because right here I'm redefining it. And yeah, I don't want to be tracking the variable. I just want to be tracking the value, and I'm not quite sure how to do that just yet in the C code. So that's a definition. The other thing is that you'll notice it here. There is a total of 4 and 2 vectors. Actually, let me go ahead and play this one more time without that code. So there's a total of 4 vectors that are cleaned up here and 3 more vectors that are cleaned up here. This corresponds with the 3 vectors I set up here and the 4 vectors I set up here. So 2 here, 3 here, and then 1 more right there, which is fine. But it's kind of not cleaning up this here, the position of the max columns, which is like 20 vectors. So if I look here, it says max column is 20. Now, this does get cleaned up if I go ahead and unset it. So if I'm down here at the close window and I unset positions, can't type. So if I go ahead and do this now and run it, you can see that there's a lot more that's cleaned up here. So now you can see there's a ton of extra, which is equal to the 20. I'm not sure why hashes are not being cleaned up in that regard. It kind of makes me think that there's an issue. Now, the other thing is that technically I am generating 3 other additional vectors that are not being cleaned up as well for this here. So I'm just kind of worried that there's going to be a memory leak happening. And that's simply because when I'm initializing the values, I'm creating these other PHP objects here and attaching it to the internal PHP camera 3D object. And I'm not incrementing it. Maybe I should. So like in the C API, I would do something like gc add ref, and then I would point to intern and position std, and then I would reference that, and this would give it an extra counter saying, hey, it's being used at that point. But then when I would replace it, and that would be in the constructor. So if I look for construct, I should be de-incremented there. So like when I release it, it should technically be released here. So if I do something like gc del ref, and I'm del refing the internal position, so I do another reference to that, and std, because I'm about to replace it there, so I'm just going to deref it. And let me take out this unset here, because we know that there's currently 7. Okay, it's already taken out. We know that there's currently 7 vectors that are being freed, so we should be able to count maybe 8 this time. We'll see. So I'll get rid of that. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So no, same as before. So just for reference, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There should have been technically 8 if I was using garbage collection there. So yeah, I'm not sure why it's not being cleared up in that regard. Like I showed, like it's adding the ref and then deleting the ref, and it's just not working as expected. Maybe up here, no, nothing. So yeah, that's my other thing I need to work on. I'm afraid that there's just going to be a nice big old memory leak that's going to happen from incorrectly allocating other objects while attaching to that, and then, like I said before, dealing with the fact that the way I'm referencing or pulling in the PHP object for like vector 3 into the camera is not correct. So that's going to be problematic to resolve as well.